Won the last knock in Laurel Hollow. People who grow up in the mountains learn early that the woods listen. Not like animals listen. Like something older does. Laurel Hollow sits a few miles off the main road in eastern Kentucky, far enough that cell service drops and sound carries wrong. A shout can roll uphill. A footstep can sound like it's behind you when it's not. Folks there lock their doors before dark, not because of crime, but because of manners. You don't invite what's outside to think it's welcome. That was the first mistake Thomas Reed made. Thomas moved back to the hollow after his wife died. Said the quiet helped. Said the mountains felt familiar. He took over his childhood home, a small place with a deep porch and a front door scarred by old claw marks no one ever explained. His nearest neighbor was a quarter-mile away. At night, the dark pressed in close. The knocking started on a Tuesday. It was just after 2 a.m. when Thomas woke to a soft sound. 3 light taps, polite, almost hesitant. He lay still, listening. Nothing followed. He told himself it was a branch, or maybe ice shifting on the porch rail. Still, he didn't go back to sleep. The next night, the knock came again. Same time, same gentle rhythm. Thomas asked around the next morning. Old Mrs. Hensley down the road stopped shelling beans when he mentioned it. "Don't answer it," she said. He laughed, didn't plan to. She didn't smile back. Doesn't matter what you plan. The third night, the knock came twice. The first was soft. The second came hard enough to shake the door in its frame. Thomas grabbed a flashlight and stood in the hallway, heart hammering. He didn't speak, didn't move. After a long minute, he heard footsteps retreating off the porch. Slow, heavy, like something dragging its weight. Mud appeared on the porch the next morning. Bare footprints. Too long, toes stretched thin like they'd been pulled. Thomas scrubbed them away. That was his second mistake. From then on, the sounds moved closer. He heard someone walking around the house at night, pausing outside windows, breathing, slow and patient. Once he heard his name whispered from the tree line. It sounded like his wife. He nearly answered that time. By the 5th night, Thomas was exhausted. He sat at the kitchen table with a shotgun across his lap, lights off, listening to the hollow breathe. At 2:13 a.m., the knock came again. Once, then twice, then a voice. "Tom," it said softly, "you gonna make me stand out here all night?" The voice was perfect, same tired warmth, same cadence. It even cleared its throat the way she used to. Thomas cried then, quietly. His finger tightened on the trigger. The thing outside sighed. "I'm cold," it said. "You always hated when I was cold." The porch light flicked on by itself. Through the thin curtain in the door window, Thomas saw a silhouette. Familiar shoulders, familiar height, one hand raised to knock again. That's when he noticed the shadow didn't move quite right. It swayed, like it wasn't used to standing. Thomas shouted. He told it to leave. He told it he knew what it was. The voice dropped. "Then why do you keep listening?" The knocking stopped. For 3 days, there was nothing. On the 4th morning, Mrs. Hensley found Thomas's front door open. The shotgun lay on the kitchen floor, unfired. Inside, muddy footprints led from the porch through the hallway, into the bedroom. They stopped at the bed. No footprints came back out. Thomas was never found. But people in Laurel Hollow say that sometimes, late at night, a porch light flicks on at his old house. And if you listen close enough, you can hear knocking, soft at first, then harder. And if you're smart, you don't listen long enough to hear the voice. 2, the lantern on the ridge. It was late October, and the fog was thick along the Appalachian ridges. Jesse had been hiking near an old logging trail, hopping to reach the summit before sunset. The trees were skeletal, their branches clawing at the gray sky. As he trudged up, he noticed a faint orange glow flickering between the trees, a lantern, swaying as if someone was walking. Strange, Jesse thought, the trail was supposed to be deserted. Curiosity got the better of him. He called out, "Hello, anyone there?" only the rustling of dead leaves answered. The lantern grew closer. Jessie could make out a figure, hunched, unnaturally tall, with arms too long for its body. Its face was hidden beneath a tattered hood, but the light reflected off what looked like hollow black eyes. Frozen, Jessie watched as it raised the lantern higher, illuminating a symbol carved deep into the tree behind it, a spiral of scratches that seemed to writhe when he looked directly at it. Suddenly, the lantern went out. Darkness swallowed the trail. Jessie spun around, trying to retrace his steps, but the path behind him had vanished. In the silence, he heard it, slow, deliberate footsteps circling him, crunching over the frosty leaves. Panic surged. Jessie ran blindly through the woods. When he stumbled onto an old, abandoned cabin, the door creaked open on its own. Inside, the walls were lined with hundreds of lanterns, each one flickering, but none of them had flames. And in the center of the cabin, the figure sat cross-legged, waiting. Jessie never saw another human being after that night. Some say if you hike that ridge at dusk, you'll catch a flicker of orange lantern light between the trees. And if it sees you, it follows. The Hollow Man of Black Oak Hollow. Black Oak Hollow was a forgotten stretch of Appalachian forest where the trees grew so close they blocked out the sun. Locals said the forest had a memory, like it remembered the people who died there. Eli and his friends had gone camping for a weekend, ignoring the warnings from the older folks in town. On the first night, while gathering firewood, Eli noticed a man standing at the edge of the clearing. His clothes were tattered, and he didn't move like a normal human. His head tilted unnaturally to one side, and when Eli blinked, he was closer. "Hey," Eli called, no response. He stepped forward. The figure vanished. Later that night, as the group huddled by the fire, a low scratching came from the trees, like fingernails on bark. One by one, the group noticed small details. The shadows seemed too long, and the firelight revealed shapes that weren't there before. When Eli woke in the middle of the night, the camp was empty. The tent flaps were open, and footprints led into the dense forest. Panic drove him to follow them, deeper and deeper, until he stumbled into a clearing he hadn't seen before. There, standing among the roots of a giant oak, was the figure. But now it wasn't alone. Faces peered from the hollows of the trees, twisted and screaming silently. The man raised his arm, pointing directly at Eli. He tried to run, but the ground beneath him gave way, swallowing him into a cold, dark hole. He awoke at dawn, back at the edge of Black Oak Hollow, alone. But the scratches on his arms were real, deep and bleeding, and the whisper of countless voices still lingered in his ears. "You can't leave. We remember you." 3. The light in the coal mine. Appalachia's abandoned coal mines held more than history. Many of the old miners disappeared without a trace, and their ghosts were said to wander the tunnels. Mara, a young urban explorer, ventured into one of the most infamous mines, determined ghosts were said to wander the tunnels. Mara, a young urban explorer, ventured into one of the most infamous mines, determined to document it. Her flashlight barely cut through the darkness, and the air was thick with dust and decay. As she navigated the labyrinthine tunnels, she noticed a faint glow ahead, a warm, amber light that shouldn't exist in an abandoned mine. Curiosity overrode fear, and she followed it. The light led her to a cavern where the walls seemed to pulse, almost like the mine itself was breathing. In the center, an old miner worked silently, swinging a pick at invisible rock. His face was pale, eyes glowing faintly. Mara tried to speak, but no sound came out. Suddenly, the miner stopped and turned. His eyes locked on hers, and his mouth opened unnaturally wide. A whisper echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "Leave or join us." The cavern shifted. Mara stumbled, and the tunnels behind her had disappeared, replaced by an endless corridor of miners, each one identical, swinging their tools in eerie rhythm. Panic surged. She ran, feeling hands brush her back, unseen but real. Hours or maybe days later, she found herself outside the mine. The sun was setting and nothing looked different. But in her hand, she held a small rock, etched with tiny faces screaming silently. She never spoke of the mine again, but sometimes at night, She swore she could hear the pickaxe striking just beyond her bedroom walls. 4. The Whistler of Pine Ridge. Pine Ridge Road was the kind of place people in Appalachia avoided after dark. Long stretches of road cut through dense forest, and locals whispered about a creature that mimicked voices to lure travelers. Tommy was driving home after a late shift. The headlights caught movement, a figure standing in the middle of the road, waving frantically. He slammed the brakes. A girl, pale and drenched, ran to his car. "Please," she begged, "help me, he's coming." Before he could react, a chilling whistle echoed from the woods. Tommy froze. The sound was inhuman, bending tones that shouldn't exist. Shadows stretched from the tree line, forming shapes taller than any man, moving with impossible speed. The girl looked at him, her eyes suddenly empty. "It's too late," she whispered, her voice suddenly distorted, twisting into the same eerie whistle. Panicked, Tommy drove recklessly, but no matter how fast he went, the road twisted unnaturally. Trees bent as if leaning in, blocking escape. The whistling followed him, and glimpses of figures flashed in his rearview mirror, human shapes, but elongated, some crawling on all fours. By dawn, Tommy crashed near the old Pine Ridge Church. He survived, but when he returned with authorities, the road had changed. There was no wreck, no signs of the girl, and no evidence the creatures existed. Locals say the Whistler still roams Pine Ridge Road. If you hear whistling when the fog rolls in, it's not the wind. And if it mimics a voice you know, you may never return. If you want, I can write another set of even longer Appalachian horror sagas, each meant to feel like a full campfire night's tale, complete with folklore and local legends intertwined.